I left a movie called The Dark Knight. And as my best friend drove down the street away from the theater, I let the window down. And this was back when it was a midnight showing, so it's like 3 in the morning. I let the window down. I stuck my head out with no hair. I had a fade. And I ran my hands through my hair like I was the Joker. Tonight, 14 years later, I got in my car after watching The Batman, and I put on Broken by Seether, featuring Amy Lee, and I drove down the dark streets of town, heading home, feeling like the Batman. I have not felt this rush of pure energy and elation since then. This movie, we just got to talk about. So welcome back to another episode of the Canon. I'm your host, Terry. And we're going to do an initial reaction to the Batman. I'm going to keep it non-spoiler at the front, and then as I continue, we'll get into some spoilers. Typically, I like to watch the movie twice before I get into a big spoiler discussion, and hopefully you have some people joining me. So we'll be doing that a little later, but I want to get my thoughts right now. So, again, non-spoiler, look, it's rare that you see a trailer. I wouldn't say rare, but I would say oftentimes is we don't see a trailer that absolutely blows our mind and the movie follows up to be exactly what that trailer sold you. And this is one of those times. This is absolutely one of those times. It's rare for me that I go in expecting a lot of a movie and I get even more than I expected. And that's what I got with this. If I were to give you just a general thought of describing this movie, first I would say that I would describe it as a domino effect. That's probably the best way that I could describe it. This movie, when you're just talking about the pure mechanics, every scene has a purpose. You get certain movies where this happens, and unfortunately I can't think of some off the top of my head, but there's certain movies where every scene that happens goes into something else that matters. Of course, we got the sirens in the background, but it speaks to me a lot, and it might not speak to a lot of people. Some people might not care, but for me, it speaks to me a lot because I'm a writer, and that's how I write. And obviously, I've never done a big budget movie. I don't know if the studio comes in and say, hey, we want this scene, we want to sell this toy, or we think this will look cool, whatever. I'm sure that happens. But as a writer, I hope that people write something that contributes to the story every single scene. And this is that type of movie. Everything that happens is a domino effect. You see something in a scene, the next scene is a reaction to it, and you just continue and continue to the end of the movie. So it gives every scene purpose, it gives every scene momentum, it adds to the story, it adds to the characters, and it just keeps the energy, I would say, going. Another thing about this movie, the artistic value, like the artistic level is out of the roof. Like, what's his name? Matt Reeves. He has to be nominated for best. I know it's early, but he has to be nominated for best director. Like, it's certain movies, again, where, because the director has to do a lot of things. It's certain movies where director, you will never know what they did to get the performance they did out of people. And there's certain directors where they're a writer-director combo, and they had a fingerprint or a style all over it. And then there's certain movies where you're like, this movie is so much more than just the people talking. It's where the camera is. It's how they focus on certain things. It's the music they bring. It's the full package. And the movie, for me, just everything again lends to the actual movie. Where they set people up, everything. Just, and it's the director. It's absolutely the director's touch, where it's crafted in such a way that it's just, it all fits together like a great puzzle. And I would say any really good mystery movie or thriller, even though you're like going through the mystery with the people and you're figuring stuff out, when you get towards the end, there's stuff from earlier that plays back into a different way. And so I absolutely love that. And then the movie, the story just had a lot to say. It was a good commentary. It was just artistic. It was well written, because there's certain parts in the movie that it can be taken a different way. And, yeah, I won't ruin that part, but there's a certain part in the movie which actually plays a bigger part outside of the movie. There's a certain thing they talk about, a clue, and this clue can mean a number of different things. And so I love that as a metaphor for the rest of the movie, as to we're putting the mirror up to not just this person, but also this person and that person and that person. And then towards the end, we figure out what the actual, thing we were talking about was. But along the way, it shows and reveals a lot about all the characters involved. And so there's a lot of cool stuff with that. And then the performances were great. As I said, it's a Batman movie. This isn't Heath Ledger's Joker taking over. Although Paul Dano might, I know this is blasphemous to say, he might be up there with Heath Ledger's Joker. But this is Robert Pattinson's movie. And it's so good because there's a lot of people that are saying it's stripped down. And I would agree with that. And it's stripped down in the sense that this is very much Batman not even 2 years in. And this is also a Bruce Wayne that's not fully healed. And so we see not just the pure, I guess, like rage and vengeance and all that, but we also see just the lack of experience, the lack of control. And so you see the arc of the characters, but also, again, it makes for great chemistry, because we got a Catwoman that's not Catwoman and a Penguin that's not Penguin early on. And it, I think, creates good ground for them to really explore, to really struggle, to really just fight for something. And it, again, like any good movie like Nolan did, by the end, it gives you a reason to want to stay on and see what happens next. So, yeah, so it's a lot that people might be expecting. So I don't know which way to go, but to me, it's everything that they marketed. If you were wondering about it, it's a noir. It's gritty. It is Detective Batman. It is Big Detective Batman. It is a mystery thriller throughout. And so there's a lot. I mean, the riddles too. It wasn't just like a normal mystery thriller, thriller. And I know a lot of people are quoting Seven, but it's not. Seven was just like kind of plain as far as the mystery and the clues. This is Riddler. This is riddles. This is really clever riddles too. And every riddle can be taken multiple ways. So that part is great. So yeah, man, I absolutely loved it. Again, it delivered on what it promised, and so that's how I feel about it. That's the non-spoiler for you. Now, getting into the spoilers, you've been warned. I'm not going to go through too much, but I would say the thing that was a negative for me, a small negative that I couldn't really say because it's a big spoiler, is, and this is, I guess is not, well, it is kind of a negative. So the whole thing about the rat, who's the rat, who's the snitch, that essentially gave up somebody and some. And it ended up being Falcone. But my problem, and this is purely my problem. I mean, if you listen to me, you know how I am. If you haven't listened to me, I don't come from comics. I come from the cartoon era, and then I've dove into all the stuff from there. I've read some comics and whatever, and obviously I know the Nolan stuff, so I know Falcone and Maroni. But even with the Nolan stuff, that was the first time I heard it, and I always confused them. And I know they were in the Batman animated series, but I didn't register that as a kid. But I always confuse it. And again, that's my own ignorance and all that. But every time I hear Falcone, I forgot his first name. See, I'm forgetting now. But then it's like Salvador Maroni and then something Falcone. And then I just get the names mixed up like all the time. And so when they were talking, I didn't really put two and two together that they were talking about two different people. Like they said the bust. I'm like, the bust was Falcone. Yeah, that's John Turturro. He went to jail. And so how could he be the snitch? It wasn't until then I was like, oh crap, they were talking about Maroni, who we never saw. And I was like, okay, so Maroni was the big person, and then Falcone snitch. My problem with that is, let's just say their names was Smith and Johnson. And I would have figured that out right away. Because they made it a big deal, a big mystery about who the snitch was. And then they kind of leave breadcrumbs to go towards the Penguin. But I would have said Falcone from the beginning. Like, yes, the bat with wings, or the rat with wings, could be a bat. It could be a penguin. It could be a falcon. I would have picked Falcon because, first of all, we're talking about snitches, not Bruce Wayne. Penguin, I didn't think he was the snitch. Not with Falcone hanging around. And so, it just makes sense. Falcone's a rival with Maroni, and, it just makes sense. So that was a little obvious. But I don't know. I don't know what the casual person, like, watching that movie, if they picked it up. But I know for me, if I wasn't just confused on the last names, I would have picked that up right away. And so that was the only thing that I would say is a little weak, but everything else, it was strong writing. Yeah, there's so much good stuff. And I can't wait to have a full out spoiler. But I would say some of the things that stick out to me, the opening. First of all, yes, because I'm thinking of the Batman opener, very opening with the Riddler and how he's stalking them, and the breathing, which becomes a thing throughout the movie. But then obviously when he turns off the TV, he didn't turn off TV yet, but he was watching the TV and he moved and the Riddler was right behind him, just creepy as crap. And so that was all great. But then the Batman opening, where it was like, because we heard the dialogue in the trailers. It was like, it's not just a signal, it's this and that. But they showed you in such a creative way where, like, it was like, 3 or 4 different crimes happening. And everybody thought the Batman, and all you did was just put the camera on a dark place with shadows. You don't know what's there. And Batman could have been any of those places. He ended up at the place with the gang or whatever. And we knew that was coming, but it was such an effective way to introduce the Riddler in the Batman. It was so artistic. It was absolutely amazing. And then, as I said, the riddles and all that, I thought was well written. Paul Dano's performance was out the window. So was Robert Pattinson. That was absolutely great. And I do think they let Thomas Wayne off a little easy, but much like the rest of this movie, it could be taken a certain way. And so still, yes, Alfred could say, this is what happened, this is how I see it. But the way Falcone and them described it, not necessarily wrong. So, and then they leave up in the air who killed his parents. It was great. It was great writing. Absolutely great. The only thing I'm going to talk about last is a Joker. So they were completely on point. I forgot the guy's name, but he plays Druid in the Marvel's Eternals. the guy that can control minds, they said that he was going to be teased as Joker in this movie. And he absolutely was. I remember his brother had said something. He had like deleted it and all that. And so, yes, it was true. And they listed him on the casting list as like a officer or something. And so they might go that backstory where he was a officer and saw the corruption and went rogue. Who knows? Because Catwoman is Falcone's daughter. I mean, the Riddler was an orphan with Wayne, and he was just like an auditor and went nuts. Like, so they switched stuff around. That's fine. So they might go with the Joker being a former cop, which I would love. Honestly, I would love. But I will say this: I loved everything they did. I already know. I'm calling it now. The most, nerdy fans are not going to like it. They're going to be like, first of all, we didn't see him. We heard some dialogue. We didn't see him, but they're going to be mad about the laugh. As I heard it, I'm like, okay, you got to do something different. It's fine. But I'm like, people not going to like that laugh. They're not going to like that laugh at all. And now they're going to start, because they didn't announce who he is, but it's going to come out after this. And so they're going to start saying he's too little, he's this, he's that, he's not a good Joker. And then they're really going to critique the laugh. But kudos to them to teasing him before the news broke. I mean, like I said, I saw that news, but people didn't pick it up like it was crazy. So people will know now, and then they'll start nitpicking him. But yeah, we got a Joker. And the only thing I'll say is I don't think he was like, this is my issue. I like The Dark Knight because the Joker was a response to the Batman. And very much in this movie, the Riddler was a response to the Batman. But I liked it because the Joker wasn't just around. Like, Batman had been Batman for a number of years or whatever. And so it was like, when did he run into the Joker? Like, that would have been a big story, this. And so this is the problem with the Batman. They have this Joker who clearly was not part of year one, because I would assume Bruce Wayne or Batman would have mentioned the Joker at some point. So he's locked up in Gotham, or no, he's in Arkham. So it's like, where did he come from? If the Batman didn't come across him, nobody's talked about this guy dressed like a clown that's been going nuts. Like, how did he get caught? So that's my only issue with that. But I'm excited, man. They built this whole thing. Again, it was an origin story. Catwoman's mistrustful, a little darker. Penguin has a chance to take over. And the Riddler has shown the whole city that is not safe. And the Joker is around. So we got all the ground for a nice little sequel. So anyway, that's it for me. Go down comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, if you heard it, it's official canon.